So, Cai Bing recently had herself edited in a pretty bad light on Girls Planet 999, which led to her rank plummeting from 8th to 20th place, a full 12 ranks down, which makes her in danger of elimination. After her fall from grace, many people have not only expressed their distaste for her personality, but also suddenly everything about her, discrediting her dancing skills, rapping skills, and everything in between, except for her face. And in fact, I see comments everywhere calling her just a pretty face, which, you know, despite everything, feels a bit dehumanizing if you ask me. But yeah, so I had a pretty similar reaction to episodes 8 and 9 as most other people did. I felt very disappointed, even appalled by her behavior. I was pissed when she ranked 8th on episode 9 despite everything. However, this also did spark my curiosity in her, and it made me search for more content about her just to see what she's really about. There wasn't really much content available, but as I looked more into her, I for some reason began to gravitate more towards her. I was kind of noticing that charm that Sunmi was describing in the first episodes. So this made me naturally question how she was portrayed in the show, and I also noticed that some other people seem to be kind of questioning this too. Although many of her worst comments have been confirmed to be mistranslations by Mnet themselves, it does seem that despite all of that, she hasn't really redeemed herself in the general public's eyes, and people have kind of jumped on this bandwagon everywhere of literally just hating everything about her and saying that she was always so overrated and whatever, and, you know, finally people are seeing it. But what I want to do is just look closer into everything and kind of dissect it. I will be discussing her skills as well as the controversy in this video. And remember that this video is in defense of Cai Bing, so I'm intentionally trying to understand her in this video instead of judging her. And when you look at people from an understanding perspective, I think you see things from a very different light than if you are there to just find faults in them. Now, before going into the controversy, I actually want to discuss her skills first, because I've seen a lot of people, you know, make these like unpopular opinion posts or whatever, and say that Cai Bing really doesn't have any skills in dancing, in rapping, anything really, and even though these are supposed to be unpopular opinions, I think they're quite popular because they tend to get a lot of traction, and you know, I just see the majority of people pretty much agreeing with those opinions. So I do want to kind of discuss why I disagree with it actually a little bit. Now, there's no doubt that she does struggle with rhythm and consistency quite a lot. She does have this tendency of being one beat ahead basically, going too quick in songs. But also I don't really think she's as bad as people paint her to be. In fact, there are clips of her dancing pretty freaking well. It's just that she also has clips where, you know, her dancing is less good, and these clips then get more traction. But I think she's kind of more so inconsistent and, you know, better at certain types of dancing than other dancing than just like bad at dancing overall. Because after observing her dancing, I did notice that she tends to be better at boy group dances, which have stronger, larger movements that are also a little bit less detailed. Now, I also think that there are a lot of times when her movements have a really nice combination of fluidity and sharpness, which makes her very engaging for me to watch, and which actually makes her dancing stand out to me when she is dancing well. Someone on Reddit who attended the Girls Planet fan meet mentioned that Cai Bing has really pretty dance lines, and I really couldn't agree more. This is something that makes her dancing very graceful and alluring, and to me that kind of overpowers the mediocre technique. That is what keeps my eyes glued to her, what makes me want to see more of her. And as much as Cai Bing struggled when practicing for Salute, I actually think that the final performance of her in Salute was really good. Like, her charisma and her sharpness and fluidity at the same time really actually stood out in that performance. And to be honest, I don't think I'm the only one, because originally, before episode 7 aired, they pre-released a part of her Salute fan cam, and everyone was like saying positive things about it. But then after the episode 7 was released, people started hating on her dancing in that performance and basically saying that it was not up to par. So obviously it's pretty clear that people's views of her skills are very much biased because they're affected by their kind of general impression of her as a person. So on top of being a dancer, she's a rapper, and naturally that comes with people also discrediting her rapping. Of course, what do we expect? But I was really confused by that because I feel like her rapping is nice, it sounds nice. She has a really pleasant like tone of voice, which is a bit like deeper, and it kind of stands out from other people's voices. For example, the helicopter performance is an example of this. And yes, there are participants with more advanced rapping technique than she does, but I think, again, the tone of voice is more important to me, because that is what actually delivers the emotions in songs, and that is what makes me want to listen to her specifically, rather than another person. So yes, while her technique could be better, it can be improved, but uniqueness and charisma, like, you're either kind of born with it or not, at least to a large extent, and the same kind of goes for dancing. Now, there seems to be a pattern on this show of Chinese contestants being edited in a pretty bad light, and I'm not really sure if Mnet really has an agenda against them. Maybe, maybe not. Or if Mnet is just taking like advantage of all the moments that are kind of available and sort of pushing them a little bit more to create some drama in the show. I'm not sure. But I do think that regardless, the culture barrier, the culture difference does influence the fact that a lot of Chinese contestants have ended up in these controversies. So I read from Girls Planet Reddit that the girls that tend to be edited in an unflattering light on this show are not just from China, but they are specifically from northern China. And apparently they kind of match the stereotype of the typical northern Chinese person in that they are more assertive and confident, blunt and competitive in a way, and this ends up getting them in these controversies. And I think this post on Reddit really discussed this well, because I don't actually know much about this, so I just read this post and thought that it was very interesting. So credit to this person who wrote this, and I will also link the post under which this comment was down below. But I think it's safe to say that it doesn't really make sense that everyone from this region is just evil or mean-spirited or something like that. And more than that, it would make a lot more sense that these people have just been enculturated to present themselves in a different way, and then in contrast to these Japanese and Korean people that have been enculturated to be really humble and sort of beat around the bush a little bit, to not seem like too blunt or, too assertive, like these people seem somehow rude or like cocky or whatever. And so I don't really think that it is the case that these girls have any worse intent than the other Chinese. They are just more frank, they're just more straightforward about what they're thinking. So many of those who actually know Cai Bing have come to her defense, saying only good things about her, which also does make me think that there's something fishy about how she was portrayed in the show, or alternatively that those clips just aren't representative of how she generally is as a person.
看起来非常蔡斌老师看起来凶，他一点都不凶。节目里哈哈哈，节目里都没看出来，节目能让你看出来的就是说性格比较少。对，就是性格都不会完全体现的，就很难。 很多人就是私底下还有很多就是魅力
待开发的，
对，
都非常好笑。
여기는 안무로 누가 짜지 지금?
저예요. 조금 당황스러워요. 이게 사실 누구 한 명이 주도하기보다는 되게 4-5명이 이끌어서 안무를 만들었습니다.
그럼 잘.
So I think that this clip may be a combination of questionable editing. You know, we know the infamous Mnet editing where they put like these reactions as seemingly responses to certain scenes, but they were actually like reactions taken from a different context. But I also think that the event in this clip could be attributed to language barriers. I think that this is something that people tend to consider too little, that literally like these people have a massive language barrier, and Cai Bing specifically is both the leader of the group and only speaks Chinese, so she can't really even communicate properly with the Korean trainees that make a large portion of this group or the judges on the show. So when the group was asked this question, she didn't necessarily fully understand the question, but still decided to answer herself because everyone else was silent and she was the leader of the group, so she could have very well interpreted this silence as a cue for her to talk. And to me this makes sense because she does like seem confused after when the other members correct her. But yeah, let's just move on to the second clip that she tends to get in trouble for.
我还和你一起做吗？可以啊，OK OK。둘이 하는 거야? 왜? 여기 둘이? 둘이. 우리도 두 사람 꼭 해야 돼, 그 아니야.
오케이, 그러면 혼자 하는 걸로 확정. 차이빙 언니는 원래 추던 자리에 그냥 땅 하는 걸로 확정. 땅땅땅. 저녁 먹기 전에 우리 이 파트 얘기 나왔어. 토킹했어요. 그래서 혼자 하는 걸로 땅땅땅 정했어요.
근데 지금 아까 전에 한 명이서 하기로 합의를 봤잖아요.
그냥 혼자 일어나 있는 게 안 헷갈려고 같은
저 리더. 我觉得我说了可以算了。就是不要再停了，赶紧继续吧，不要再提出任何意见了。
So this part was originally translated as I can do whatever I want. Later, after a day or two, literally after everyone had already watched this episode, it was corrected into I think my opinion matters too, or something along those lines. Which is a totally different and, in my opinion, a valid thing to say, actually. But you know, let's just discuss this from the perspective that she was being a little bit authoritarian here, maybe a little bit like oppressive to the other members. I think when evaluating her words, we do need to think about the context, again, the language barrier. They are practicing, and all of a sudden, the Korean members begin opposing the formation and talking to each other at a fast pace.
아까 전에 한 명이서 하기로 합의를 봤잖아요.
그냥 혼자 일어나 있는 게 안 헷갈려고 같은
Now, obviously, their conversation and their discussion was justified, but Cai Bing didn't necessarily understand what was going on. So as the person who's supposed to have control of the situation as the leader, this could feel very chaotic and confusing to her. Therefore, she may have ended up saying what she said just in an attempt to bring some order to regain control as the leader, because she probably felt that this was the most effective way to sort things out, since things did need to be sorted out, considering that she can't really fully communicate with the other trainees. Also, notice that we only saw a small clip from the practice, and in fact none of the process that led to Cai Bing not even having the killing part in the final performance was shown. So obviously she didn't just end up doing whatever she wants, but we don't see like how the members made up or how they came to that conclusion, which, you know, could have definitely painted Cai Bing in a better light than just showing this clip. And furthermore, only Korean trainees were interviewed and expressed their frustration at her during this episode, while literally none of the Chinese trainees who she can actually fully and accurately communicate with said anything negative about her, probably because, you know, they could understand her. Also, to address, for example, the clip where the one Korean trainee said that Cai Bing is very opinionated. Again, like, it could be just a cultural difference. Like, if she has been enculturated to just be more frank, to be more opinionated, then, you know, it makes sense for her to be that way. And in her culture, that's not necessarily rude or like off-putting to people in the way that it would maybe be for Korean trainees. Now let's move on to the episode following this episode, episode 8 that is, where Cai Bing wants to be the leader again.
리더 하고 싶어요. 리더 하고 싶어요. 因为我之前在 SLU 组的时候也是当了队长，我觉得我们组当时完成的很出彩，并且赢了。我觉得再次做队长的话，我觉得我会做得更好的。
Now this could feel really absurd to some people, considering her previous performance as the leader. But remember that we don't actually know how she previously performed as the leader overall, apart from those few clips that we saw. Obviously, the members didn't seem very happy about it, but it's possible that they never properly communicated their frustration in a way that was understandable to Cai Bing in the previous episodes. And this would make sense because when the Chinese members explained to her why Kim Daeon would be a better leader, in a more like straightforward, frank manner, she does seem to immediately get the memo and doesn't really oppose or anything like that.
那就把气氛搞愉快一点。
OK， 我有话说，我推荐答应做队长。
So yeah, when Kim Daeon and Cai Bing are discussing who will be the leader, Cai Bing gets mistranslated yet again, and later corrected by Mnet, but this original translation is shown again in episode 10, which is, you know, I don't get it because they had the correct translation and then they still decided to like show that translation again. So Daeon and Cai Bing end up both trying out leading the groups for a few hours, and Cai Bing, you know, to be honest, doesn't do a great job at it. And so she ends up giving up and giving the position to Daeon. Now Daeon is obviously naturally a way better leader than Cai Bing, but if you observe Cai Bing leading her group, it's pretty visible that the communication suffers due to the language barrier again, which makes everything slower, it makes things more frustrating, and it makes things more confusing.
워크 1! 그 아가? 没有换. 둘이 아가 자리 바꿔야 돼. 근데 이렇게 바꾸면 이 뒤에 제가 앞으로 나갈 수 있는 타이밍이 없어서 잠시만요.
워크 1 파츠.
불안했어요.
즉석에서 동선을 정리하려니까 진도도 느리고 이도저도 나가지 못하는 상황이 돼버려서
그리고 이거를 워크 2 파트. 여기 자리.
저희 자리 바꿀 시간이 아예 없어요. 바꿀 시간이 아예 없어요.
솔직히 すごく焦りました。
因为我后面有个探头，我要从后面这样走出来。
那从头开始我们要换一下。
这会换他的时候时间很短，怕他从那儿到不了这儿。
但他可以，他跑光，全得换。
Now, I don't think she would be an amazing leader, you know, if everyone spoke Chinese in that group. Like, no, I don't think that because an amazing leader would be able to pull leading off even in this situation that Cai Bing is in. But however, I do think that she wouldn't be as disastrous of a leader if there wasn't this massive language barrier that is making everything confusing. But anyways, there's just my justification for her behavior, another perspective for you to hopefully consider. I obviously don't know how things really unfolded. This is just an alternative perspective, and to me it does make sense. At least it does make sense to me that Cai Bing didn't have bad intent, because, you know, other people have said only nice things about her, and, you know, the clips of her in episode 9, I think they were nice. She seemed really nice, and I actually felt so bad for her for like dropping down so much in her ranks, because I really don't think she ever had a bad intention. I will be back with a new video soon, which will be like more planned and less spontaneous like this, but yeah, I just had this sudden like wave of enthusiasm to make this video. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next video.